Once she was a princess, loved and envied. Now, returned from a death that left her less than human, Seris moves unseen through the blood-soaked corridors of the werewolf court. Every whispered promise hides a knife. Every hand offered conceals a threat. And her soul, twisted by the curse that brought her back, is slipping away with every heartbeat. The one man who might save her is also the king who exiled her, and his trust is the deadliest danger of all. With the kingdom's fate at stake, can Seris reclaim her lost self before the shadows inside her become the kingdom's doom? Or is she already too far gone? But let me start from the beginning. Seris pressed her split palm hard to the iron gate. Blood welled between her fingers, the rough metal bit stinging into old scabs and new skin. The gate was colder than bone. Wind scraped her ankles, lifting the ragged edge of her cloak. She wanted to step back. She couldn't. Her knees threatened to buckle, and there was nowhere left to go. 4 days without shelter. Her dress was more dirt than fabric, soaked through from last night's rain. Each shiver rattled her teeth. Hunger gnawed at her gut, sharper than any memory. Would they even recognize her? Why had she come back? She didn't know. From inside, laughter spilled out, thick as spiced wine, mixing with the stink of sweat and wet stone. She tensed. No one here wanted her. No one ever had. A guard's shadow passed overhead. He didn't bother looking down. For a heartbeat, Seris let her forehead rest against the iron, cold and unforgiving. The pain in her hand was real. The memory of her name felt less so. Someone shouted inside. The music cut off mid-chord. She could almost taste the fear of being noticed. And then, worse, the hope.
Enough.
The words struck like a thrown stone. Conversations died at once. Every sound in the hall, drinking, argument, laughter, vanished. Seris dug her nails deeper into the gate. She tried to remember how to stand straight. Her skin prickled as faces turned her way, just visible through the gaps in the gate. She caught glimpses of gold, of velvet, of eyes hungry for scandal. Boots scuffed the stone behind her. A guard approached, sneering as he took in her sodden dress, the tangled mess of her hair.
Lost? Ghost? The dead don't beg here.
He reached through the bars and flicked her cowl back, exposing the iron collar at her throat. His knuckles scraped her jaw, leaving a greasy trail. She flinched. The court saw.
Or maybe you're hoping the king will feed you like a dog.
A snort from the second guard. Behind them, someone spat. Seris forced her chin up, though her voice came strangled.
Tell King Thane I'm here. He'll know me.
The guards exchanged grins. One reached through, hooked a finger in the iron collar, and jerked her forward so her shoulder struck the gate. Laughter trickled from above.
He knows all his mistakes.
Her face burned, but she refused to pull away. The black mark on her wrist caught the torchlight, swirling, alive.
Open the gate, or I'll make you regret it.
The threat was little more than a rasp, but something in her eyes made the guards hesitate. The older one shrugged, cursing, and threw the latch up. The iron gate shrieked open, catching her already bleeding hand. She let them see her wince. She stepped through. Warmth and noise hit her like a wave. Spiced wine, sweat, trampled petals, the sour breath of too many bodies. Wolf courtiers in silks and leather stared openly, some smirking, others drawing back as if her presence might stain them. The injustice rippled. Someone snickered. A woman in gold leaned to murmur. A young man pinched his nose in mock disgust. She walked on, cloak trailing, mud streaking the white stones of the great hall. Every step toward the dais felt earned in pain. Each guard's shove, each whispered insult floating up as she passed. Her stomach twisted. She had been royal once. Now she was a spectacle. The Alpha King stood over the silent crowd, broad-shouldered and wrapped in black and gold. Torchlight flashed over the golden fur at his collar. His hand gripped the throne's armrest. An iron ring on his left hand caught the firelight. King Thane's jaw clenched. Was that surprise or disgust? His eyes locked on the swirling black mark on her wrist as she raised it. meaning to explain or defend. She didn't know which. The guards seized her, twisting her arms behind her back. One forced her to her knees, grinding bone into cold stone. Her head bowed, hair falling forward. Somewhere behind her, the crowd began to whisper.
Enough. Show her.
A guard wrenched her wrist up into the torchlight. The cursed mark writhed, twisting like smoke, darker than pitch. Gasps scattered through the court. Someone gagged. The king went rigid. For a moment, his composure splintered. The iron ring on his hand glimmered as he clenched his fist. He stepped down from the dais, boots echoing on the stone.
What's the matter, Thane? Afraid to touch your own curse?
He stopped, so close now she could see the pulse ticking at his jaw. The way his eyes darted to her mark, then away. The mark was alive, crawling higher. No one moved. Pride and pain warred inside her, but she forced herself upright, refusing to bow. The crowd seemed to shrink back, all eyes fixed on her mark and the king's hand. The guards held her fast. Then, without warning, the mark on her wrist surged, blackness crawling toward her elbow, burning cold. The king stared, transfixed. His ring burned against his skin, and with every soul watching, Seris wondered, why did her curse terrify the king more than it did her? The guard's grip tightened, and the torches flickered, as if the hall itself sensed the answer was already too close. Iron gauntlets crushed Seris's shoulders, shoving her to her knees. 1,000 eyes crawled over her. Lords, guards, servants pressed in tight, sweat and the biting scent of spiced wine, thick as fog beneath the vaulted stone. Her knees hit rough flagstones, so hard pain spiked up her spine. Cloaks swept aside as the king's voice rang out, sharp and cold.
Display your wrist, now, for all to see.
A second's hush, broken by the scrape of boots. Why the public spectacle? Whispers flickered like torchlight. Why was the king so intent she kneel, shamed before the entire court? Why did the mark matter enough to command such humiliation? The guards jerked Seris's arm up, wrenching her sleeve high. She grit her teeth. The cursed black swirl writhed across her pale skin, alive beneath the torch glow, the dizzying scent of sweat and wine pressing in. Someone gasped. A wine cup shattered somewhere behind her.
Remarkable. The exile returns, marked and chained.
Lys's words slithered into the hush. Seris stared ahead, refusing to flinch. King Thane descended the dais with measured steps. His every movement sent courtiers stumbling back. Power radiated from him, not in shouts, but in the way silence followed his words. He stopped above her. His shadow, not the torchlight, not a metaphor, but the very shape of his body, blotted out her view of the throne.
You enter my hall, wearing the mark of traitors. You think you belong here?
The guards forced her wrist higher, twisting until bone ached. The mark shimmered, dark as spilled ink, winding up toward her elbow. All eyes were fixed on it.
Speak. Why return? Why now?
He leaned close. The scent of fur and old gold replaced the wine for one breath. His hand hovered, as if he meant to seize her, but it trembled. Fraction of a second. Gone.
I have nothing to beg for. You know why I am here.
A flicker passed across Thane's face, not anger, but something colder. His fingers curled into fists, knuckles white. Somewhere to her right, Apothecary Meryl's cloak rustled. She glimpsed his small blue eyes, wide and darting. A courtier snorted. The guards crushed her down again, but Seris forced her chin up.
You could have killed me at the gate, but you wanted this.
Lys's quill scratched. Meryl edged closer, hunched and watchful. She locked eyes with Thane. The mark pulsed darkly, and for an instant, every sound in the hall, the scrape of boots, the clink of goblets, mutters behind velvet collars, faded to nothing but the hiss of his breath. He saw it, his jaw locked. His hand, the one bearing the iron ring, shivered before he hid it in the folds of his coat. A brief laugh burst from somewhere in the gallery, quickly stifled. Then Meryl, quiet and nervous, leaned forward, peering at her wrist, his gaze not curious, but knowing. Recognition sparked in his eyes, gone as quickly as it came. A single drop of spiced wine fell from a lord's trembling cup, staining the stone at her feet. What did they see in her mark that made the king's hand shake? What had Merrill recognized beneath the shifting black lines?
Chain her. She will answer in full, before sunrise.
Cold links snapped shut around her wrists. The hall erupted. Above the roar, Thane stared straight through her, as if searching for something only he could see. What is it about her mark that makes the king's hand tremble? If you're curious about the secrets hidden in her skin, subscribe now. Let's see what happens next. She clenched her jaw against the pain. She would not bow again. Behind her, Merrill was already moving, eyes narrowed, lips pressed thin. The doors to the lower dungeons yawned wide, iron and torchlight waiting. Torchlight flickered on stone as Seris stood beneath the wolf banners, the iron collar cold and unyielding against her throat. The court's breath was 100 shallow gusts, thick with spiced wine and sweat, all eyes fixed on her, some eager, some afraid. King Thane's boots rang against the dais as he took his throne. His voice carried, low and controlled.
Seris returns under the curse of the unseen. You all see the mark. There can be no argument. She is a threat until proven otherwise.
Iron scraped her skin as a guard forced the collar closed. It bit deeper, colder. She refused to flinch. She would not give them the satisfaction. Apothecary Merrill hovered at the edge of her vision, fingers twisted around each other, eyes darting to her wrist, to the collar, then away. Liss, the scribe, pressed a quill so hard his knuckles whitened. Ink pooled beneath his fingers, staining both skin and parchment. He never looked up.
Let the record show. The collar of shadow-forged iron is set. State your defense or accept exile into the wild.
Seris pressed her tongue to her teeth, tasting blood. The collar's edges pinched. Each word would cost her.
You want a threat contained. I want my hands unbound. A trade, then.
A ripple. Some courtiers laughed, brittle as glass. Others recoiled, as if she might snarl or bite.
A trade. You presume much for someone in chains.
His eyes flickered to her neck, lingered half a second too long. The collar's chill worked through her skin, sending sharp warnings to her nerves. But then she saw it, a flicker of doubt beneath his calm. She wondered, does he believe her? Or is he hiding something?
I know what feeds the shadow plague, where it started, and how it spreads. Take the collar off, and I show you.
The court fell silent, air thick with unasked questions. Even Merrill stopped fidgeting. Thane studied her. One hand curled around the arm of his throne. His iron ring shone, twin to her mark. He showed nothing, except, for an instant, a shadow of doubt under all that composure.
You claim knowledge the court healers lack. Why should I believe you?
She let the silence stretch. The collar's weight grounded her, each breath scraping past iron.
Because your best scribe.
She glanced at Liss, his fingertips black with ink, the stain creeping up the side of his hand.
Recorded 8 deaths this week. 3 inside your own walls, none died clean.
A stir raced through the courtiers. Lice bristled, lifting his hand reflexively, as if to hide the ink. She filed the gesture away.
And what would you do with your freedom, Seris? Run? Betray us?
I bargain, not beg. Give me one night. I will bring you proof by dawn, or you may put me down, like any wild creature.
He held her gaze, deliberate, cold, assessing, but beneath the command, something flickered. Guilt or fear? She couldn't tell. The collar's chill sent a shudder through her bones, but she kept her eyes level. A muffled yelp broke the tension. A wolf pup, someone's royal pet, too young for menace, had nosed free from under a bench. It latched its teeth into the hem of Seris's dress, tugging with single-minded determination. A ripple of stifled laughter ran through the court. Even Thane's mouth twitched, just once. Seris glanced down. the ridiculous sight nearly absurd enough to crack her composure. The pup gnawed, tail thumping against the velvet steps. Seris did not move. She offered it her coldest glare.
If that is royal justice, I reconsider my strategy.
The laughter died quickly, but the spell was broken. Thane spoke, his voice low.
One night. Prove your worth or return to chains. The collar stays.
He signalled to the guards. The chain attached to her collar jerked, sharp pain lancing her neck.
Take her to the West Tower. Double guard. Scribe Lice, you will record every word she says from now until dawn.
A final glance from Thane, hard to read, shadowed by something old and unspoken. The collar burned at her throat. Still, Seris let them drag her from the dais, her mind already working. The court's stares pressed in, some hungry, some pitying, all waiting to see if the wolf would run or turn and bite. She did not look back. Not yet. Velvet muffled every sound. Seris traced the deep red drape, its softness almost mocking under her trembling fingers. She pressed harder, as if enough pressure might leave a mark, on the velvet or on her. Moonlight broke through stained glass, shattering across the floor in fractured gold and blue. The air was heavy with the faded ghosts of spiced wine, sweat, and something sharper, oil from the iron lock behind her, old and unyielding. She tested the door, solid, the latch unmoving. Voices murmured in the corridor, low and wary. Boots scraped stone, then stilled. A guard, or perhaps two. No threats spoken, but the message was clear. This comfort was a cage. Seris moved to the bed. Velvet again, this time on the heavy coverlet, a richness meant to distract from what she was not allowed to touch. Freedom. She lifted the pillow. Her fingers caught on a scrap of paper, edges jagged, the king's wax seal split down the middle. She unfolded it cautiously. The writing was desperate, ink splotched and hurried. Tonight, the West Chamber. Do not. The last word ended in a torn line. The rest was missing, as if ripped away mid-sentence. Her thumb smeared the half-seal, wondering, was this a warning, a promise, or both? A noise outside made her freeze. The scent in the room twisted. Velvet, sweat, a whiff of cold iron and old storms. She closed her fist around the letter and scanned the chamber. The mirror, the chest, the tapestry sagging on the far wall. Wolf shapes faded into the weave, eyes nearly lost to age. She crossed the room and ran her hand along the velvet edge. Her fingers hit a seam. A tug, fabric parted. Behind it, a narrow line in the stone. She pushed. The panel shifted with a slow, gritty sigh, revealing blackness and the stale breath of hidden places. A moment's awe shivered through her. The scent here was different. Damp stone, something metallic, something old and restless. On the other side of the door, a guard coughed. Heavy footsteps stopped, then retreated, as if the watcher could not decide whether to listen or leave. The velvet under her hand bunched, her knuckles blanching with the effort not to panic. She let the drape fall, edged closer to the hidden opening, the torn letter pressed against her palm. Its message unfinished. A warning or an invitation. Seris stared into the dark slit. One step would put her in the unknown. One sound might bring the guard inside. A memory flickered. Moonbeams through nursery glass, safety promised long ago. That was another life. She flexed her wrist, iron band cold and real.
Iron and velvet, some prison.
She tasted defiance in her mouth. Not enough to break the collar's spell, but enough to move. A breath. She slid through the opening, gripping the torn letter tight. Velvet brushed her shoulders, closing behind with a hush. The stone passage swallowed her. Behind, the door's iron latch rattled. A voice, muffled and urgent, called her name. She did not stop. Not for Velvet, not for Thane, not for fear, not now. The passage pressed close on either side, stone slick and cold beneath Seris's palm. She traced the seam of the wall, breath shallow, the metallic scent thick enough to taste. Far above, a court bell tolled once. The sound quivered down the corridor, vibrating through the damp rock. Each step drew her deeper. Her fingers curled against the chill, grounding her when her thoughts wanted to scatter. She counted grooves in the masonry, searching for breaks, for secrets pressed flat by time. Something moved ahead, a murmur too low to decipher. Seris pressed herself against the wall, cloak dragging across moss. A sliver of torchlight slipped through a hairline crack in the stone. She crouched, peering into a secret chamber barely wider than a wine cask. 2 figures inside. Their shapes wavered in the flicker, one short and stooped, the other lean, ink stains at his cuffs.
It's too dangerous. If the girl's caught with this, she's always been a threat. Let the evidence find her hands.
Meryl's hands shook as he lifted a glass vial, pale liquid glimmering. Liss took it, rolling it between thin fingers.
A single drop in the king's cup. She'll be blamed before sunrise. The pale wolf will have no friends left.
The phrase snagged at Seris's memory, sharp and cold. Lice tucked the vial into a pouch, voice low.
She's watched. She knows nothing. By tomorrow, she'll hang or run. You said no harm. I said nothing that wasn't necessary.
A metallic clatter. Meryl flinched, nearly dropping a second vial. Liss laughed, quick and bitter. They moved to leave. Seris let the noise cover her motion. She slipped around the edge of the stone, feeling the damp seep through her sleeve. As the conspirators' footsteps faded, she slid into the chamber. The chill of the stone bit her wrist, but it steadied her. On the table, a torn scrap of velvet, powder dusting the surface, a third vial half hidden behind a ledger. She moved fast, mind racing. If she took the vial, would they notice? Her every move would be scrutinized, every gesture doubted. They were counting on her silence. She took it anyway. The glass was cold, slick with condensation. She wrapped it in the fold of her cloak, heart kicking against her ribs. The passage seemed narrower now, the air heavier, a whisper behind her. She froze, half turned, only a draught. Or so she told herself. For a moment, Seris allowed herself a dry, soundless laugh. Of all the charges they could invent, poisoning was almost elegant. She pressed her palm to the stone again, grounding herself, letting the chill remind her she was still here, still dangerous, even if no one believed it. The weight of the vial in her hand was proof enough. She slipped back into the dark, questions crowding her steps. Who else knew? What was the pale wolf? Why her? The court bell tolled again, closer this time. Above, the walls trembled. Was that footsteps, or just old stone aching under secrets? She gripped the evidence tighter and kept moving, pulse sharp, mind already turning to whom she could trust, if anyone. Rain battered the Solar's leaded windows, filling the stone chamber with a constant, urgent drumming. Low firelight cast broken shapes across the tapestries, catching on the iron ring at King Thane's hand. The wolfhound, massive and pale, sprawled at Seris's feet, until it stood, planted forepaws on her knees, and with no regard for dignity, slumped the bulk of its body into her lap. Its fur was warm, nearly hot, pressing through the threadbare linen of her dress. She did not push it off. She barely flinched. Instead, she fixed her gaze on the king, cold as river ice. Thane's voice was measured, but tight. He remained standing, arms folded over his brocade, just beyond the circle of firelight.
Why come back, Seris? You vanished for years. No one expected you alive, not after what happened.
She watched the fire snap, illuminating his jaw set in a line of suspicion.
You expected a corpse. I am not in the habit of dying for others' comfort.
The wolfhound heaved a sigh, its breath ruffling her wrist where the black mark still curled, a warning, visible and unhidden. The animal's weight grounded her, a small, unwelcome anchor.
You could have stayed lost. This court holds nothing for you but memory and threat. Yet you returned with the mark. Why?
She glanced at his hand, the iron ring, matching the pattern burned into her skin.
Does it matter? You choose what the court believes. You shape the threat.
He stepped closer, boots scuffing over the woven wolf pelts.
The threat is real. I cannot afford divided loyalties. I am offering protection, Seris, not a dungeon. I want your knowledge. I want your loyalty. You owe it.
She tensed, the wolfhound's fur prickling her palms as her hands curled around it. Outside, thunder cracked. The smell of burned pine and wet stone snaked through the window's cracked edge.
I owe you nothing. Protection? Is that the word for shackles and collars now? Or just for the ones you want close enough to leash?
The king's jaw flexed. The dog, oblivious to politics, slid higher into Seris's lap until she could feel its heart beating. Steady, insistent. It sneezed wetly, spattering her sleeve.
The mark is a warning, not a wound. Certain eyes at court will not be so restrained. If you'd rather test their mercy.
I have survived enough mercy to last a lifetime.
He knelt, unexpectedly, one knee sinking into the rug opposite her. Rain hammered overhead, a single wolf outside howling against the storm. For a moment, the fire's warmth made the room feel almost close. The only softness came from the animal pressing against her bones.
Then bargain with me. What do you want for your silence? For your help? There's unrest in these walls. You know the old passages, the old magic.
The hound shifted, a heavy paw slapping her wrist. Seris's lips twitched, almost a smile, almost nothing. She met Thane's eyes.
No protection, no leash. You want my loyalty? Earn it, or gamble on what secrets I might trade instead.
The king's eyes narrowed. For a breath, suspicion, and something raw passed between them. The wolfhound, bored with intrigue, snuffled loudly and attempted to lick Seris's face. She recoiled, the animal's nose cold against her jaw, and for the first time, Thane's composure cracked. He looked away, shoulders shaking with something that might have been a laugh.
My apologies. She's the only courtier who never lies.
The storm raged. The hound settled back into Seris's lap, pinning her there with improbable warmth. He straightened, the iron ring glinting in the firelight.
Consider my offer, Seris. Choose a side before someone else chooses for you.
Someone moved outside the door. A scraping, hesitant, too long pause. Seris's fingers curled into the wolfhound's fur, pulse jumping as danger clawed closer. She did not move. The king's gaze sharpened, sweeping to the doorway. He rose. The wolfhound's weight pinned her in place. The storm battered against old stone, and Seris realized she was not the only one being hunted. The village square blazed with torchlight, the smell of roasting chestnuts clinging to the chill air while gunpowder from the fireworks pricked Seris's nose. Music clashed with laughter, uneven and too loud. Crowds pressed in, faces bright and expectant. She was led forward, visible, exposed, her charcoal cloak and torn dress a stark contrast to the crimson ribbons thrown at her feet. She kept her eyes locked on the uneven cobbles, ignoring the stairs. Somewhere behind, King Thane's voice carried, sure, measured, commanding the crowd's awe.
Behold, the wolf blood returned. The curse will be broken under our banner. Tonight, the kingdom feasts, for hope lives.
His words cost him nothing. The velvet rope of guards tethered her, not physically but through expectation. The villagers needed living proof that the lost princess endured. She raised her wrist, letting the black mark swirl into sight. Gasps rippled. Children ran near and retreated, their courage brittle with delight and fear. A sudden pop overhead. A firework, green and gold, drew every gaze upward. Seris seized the moment. She slipped sideways, vanishing behind a cluster of laughing youths. The scent of chestnuts was stronger here, almost masking the tang of iron from her collar. A boy jostled her, then a small hand tugged at her cloak. A tiny girl, cheek smudged and dress too large, offered a single white flower, bent, already bruised by too many fingers. Seris took it without pausing. The child smiled all gaps and hope, then vanished, swept away by the swirl of the festival. Seris tucked the flower into her sleeve. She moved with the crowd, steps quick and silent, until the press of bodies broke near the apothecary's crooked door. The building leaned against its neighbour, moss-green boards slick with dew, windows aglow with sickly yellow light. The air here turned sharp, burned pine, bitter root, and a whiff of fireworks drifting from the square. Inside, Apothecary Merrill hunched over the counter, his fingers jittering around a row of stoppered vials. He looked up, eyes darting behind her.
You should not be here. Not now. The guards.
They're watching fireworks. You are not.
She closed the distance, voice flat as iron. The apothecary recoiled, spilling a measure of faded powder across the countertop.
I have nothing for curses. Nothing certain. Only rumor and risk.
His hands shook as he wiped the mess with his sleeve. Seris watched him closely, noting the way he glanced past her, as if expecting rescue or arrest.
You carry a vial when the king parades me. That is not habit, it is purpose.
A shutter rattled in the wind. Distant music splintered, then revived. For a moment, Seris felt the press of the square, hope and danger knotted together, impossible to untangle. Merrill licked his lips, voice dropping.
Some say the mark can bleed out. That pain frees power. Old superstition. I do not.
What do you hide below? The villagers say you keep a cure. I want it.
He hesitated, staring at her wrist as if the mark itself might rise and bite. Behind the counter, he nudged a trap door with his foot. From the square, a new explosion, white, then red, lit the world through the apothecary's warped glass. Seris saw King Thane's figure, alone near the bonfire, eyes scanning for what was missing. The tension between them stretched, absent but felt. A brief surge of music masked Merrill's next words.
There is no cure, only change. If I help, everything changes.
Seris let her hand rest on the counter, fingers steady despite the tremor in her gut.
Then, show me the way.
He glanced at the flower stem, peeking from her sleeve, a silent note passed in daylight. From outside, heavy boots scraped the cobblestones. Seris's body tensed. Someone was approaching, too purposeful for a drunk reveler. She pressed closer to the counter, mind racing. The air shifted, roasting chestnuts giving way to the acrid bite of burning powder, sharp as warning. The door shook under a heavy hand, wood threatening to splinter. She did not flinch. This time, she would chase the secret herself. The sharp tang of crushed sage and bitter root clung to Seris's tongue. As she stepped into the apothecary's cramped back room, torchlight flickered off glass vials and bundles of withered herbs tacked to splintered beams overhead. Behind a battered counter, Merrill hunched over a heavy ledger, his knuckles stark against the faded green wool of his coat. He startled as Seris approached. She did not stop. The iron collar chilled her throat as she slid a small velvet pouch onto the wood between them. The last of her coin.
You know why I'm here.
Merrill's hands trembled as he snapped the ledger shut, the motion sending a bitter haze of crushed root into the air. His eyes darted to the door, then back to Seris's wrist, to the black mark snaking beneath her sleeve.
You shouldn't have come. Not with the festival and the guards. They watch everyone.
That is not my concern. Tell me, Merrill, the truth, not another fable for frightened servants.
A jar toppled as he reached for the pouch. Coins clinked. The apothecary's breath came quick, sharp as the sage curling from the mortar at his elbow.
Curses like yours, I keep no cures, only records.
He opened the ledger, hands shaking so badly that ink smeared under his thumb. The quill rolled, nearly falling.
Who wrote my name there?
Merrill did not answer. Instead, he thumbed through the pages, dozens of names, dates, odd notations, failed, withstood, departed. Then, beneath a spidery column marked shadowed lineage, Seris saw it. Her own name, scrawled in a hand she did not recognize. The date was older than her memory. She looked up. Merrill's fingers hovered above the entry, knuckles white.
I do not know who first recorded it. The ink was dry when I took this post.
Seris pressed her palm flat to the page, trapping his hand. The parchment was gritty, the ink tacky. as if her fate might still be drying.
The cost for a cure, what is it?
Meryl's jaw worked. He avoided her eyes, sweat beading at his brow.
The curse binds itself to royal blood. To break it, the records say a sacrifice must be made. Not just any blood, a willing offering tied to the old bloodline. I never saw it done.
A laugh, thin as the brittle sage stalks, caught in Seris's throat. Old bloodline. The king's family. Her family. Her mark burned colder.
So I am to bleed for another's freedom, or someone for mine.
Meryl's hand slipped from under hers. He wiped his palm on his coat, eyes never leaving the ledger. A door creaked open at the far end. The heavy reek of bitter root shifted. She tensed. King Thane stepped inside, his presence swallowing what little space remained. His gaze flickered between Seris and the Apothecary, then landed on the open ledger.
You found what you needed?
Seris did not answer. She closed the ledger, her fingertips stained with old ink. A silence stretched. Even the torchlight seemed to hesitate.
If there is a price, I will pay it, whatever it demands.
For an instant, Seris's fingers brushed his as she handed him the ledger. The contact was brief, accidental, but the shock lingered.
You speak of sacrifice. Would you see it through, even if the blood is yours?
Thane's expression did not flicker, but his hand, resting on the ledger, trembled, just as Meryl's had. A distant clang of iron gates cut through the hush, echoing along the corridor. Seris's name, already written. A sacrifice required, the king's vow hanging between them, and in the apothecary's ledger, beneath her name, a second entry, half finished. The ink still wet. Grey dawn seeped across the riverbank, dragging a curtain of fog between the splintered cottages. Wet earth clung to Seris's boots. The air tasted of moss and fever, the kind that stuck beneath skin and refused to leave. She stepped over puddles where yellow torchlight blurred on mud. Inside the nearest hut, a woman's breathing rasped, shallow and frantic. Seris knelt beside the sickbed, fingers hovering over a man's chest, feeling the feverish dampness of his skin. From his heart, grey veins spidered outward. Each pulse darkened their reach. Thane's shadow filled the doorway, the golden fur of his collar streaked with dew. He watched, arms folded, eyes calculating.
You said you could help. I expect more than observation.
Seris pressed her palm to the man's forehead. The heat bled into her bones. She measured the spread of the veins, noting the unnatural pattern.
This is not infection. It is magic. Foul, old. I need quiet.
The villagers clustered outside, whispers thick as the fog. Someone spat. A stone struck the doorframe.
The people are frightened. They blame the curse.
A voice broke through, hoarse and desperate.
They say she brought the plague. I told you she should not.
The man's wife lunged, wild-eyed, pushing Seris back. Her hands were rough. The scent of fever clung to Seris's cloak.
Witch, you're the reason he's dying.
Seris stood, cold and deliberate. Thane stepped between them, one arm outstretched, fingers brushing Seris's shoulder, then dropping, as if scalded.
Enough. Let her work, or bury him yourself.
The woman recoiled, clutching her children. Seris drew a clean blade, slicing her own palm. She let her blood drip onto the man's chest, watching the grey veins tremble. Nothing changed. A child tugged her sleeve, wide-eyed with confusion. The narrator describes. The little boy blinked up at Seris, voice quivering. "Are you a ghost?" Someone snorted, laughter breaking the tension, sharp and too loud. Seris didn't answer. She bound her palm, mind racing. The mark on her wrist tingled, colder now. The crowd surged again. Accusations spat like nails. Seris counted exits, gauging distances. She could not fight them all. She could not tell the truth. The curse's root was here, but to name it would sign her death. She leaned close to Thane, voice low.
They'll riot before dusk. If I fail, it will be by your order.
He met her stare, jaw clenched.
Then don't fail.
She turned back to the fevered man. His skin burned beneath her hand, damp, desperate, alive for now. Seris forced her voice steady.
Boil water, crushed sage, burn everything he has touched.
Merrill scrambled for supplies, fumbling with a vial. Someone spat again. The fog thickened. Seris searched the man's chest for patterns. The veins twisted around his heart, forming a shape she almost recognized. A symbol clawed at her memory, nameless and hungry. She blinked, and the grey lines writhed. The iron collar at her throat felt heavier than ever. Night pressed close along the riverbank. The grass cool beneath Seris's legs. The fire snapped, dull orange in the dark, surrounded by the chorus of night insects. Pine logs burned slow, scattering embers that flickered against the rough wool blanket she shared with Thane. The warmth was a small boundary, dry and comforting over damp earth and awkwardly intimate. He sat across from her, closer than the last time they'd spoken, his shadow outlined by the glow, eyes hard to read in the uncertain light. The metallic scent of his coat mixed with the distant trace of burned pine. She watched him study the river, shoulders set as if braced for attack. He broke the silence first, holding out half a round of bread. His hand hovered a little too long, deliberate, no excuse but kindness.
You haven't eaten since dawn.
Seris accepted, careful not to touch his skin. The bread was soft, a surprise. She tore it in silence, chewing as the fire's warmth seeped upward, making the night's tension feel more bearable.
Why are you here?
He hesitated, his jaw tight, then passed her a battered flask. The gesture was wordless. She took it, the rim cold against her mouth, a hint of spiced wine burning in her throat.
I could ask the same, except I followed you.
The blanket shifted between them as Seris pulled it higher. She was painfully aware of his hand beside hers, just 2 inches to the left. Her cursed wrist burned with memory, the black mark hidden beneath frayed cloth, still throbbing from the day's strain.
You trust me enough to sit here?
He met her gaze. His voice, when it came, was low and careful.
I don't trust you, not entirely, but I respect the way you survived the court.
Their eyes locked. The firelight revealed new lines on his face, moments of youth and exhaustion overlapping. She looked away first, focusing on the river, the surface broken by reeds, grey dawn fog threatening the edges. The blanket's dry wool scratched her thigh through her torn dress. She let herself lean into it, just barely.
I am changing. The curse?
Her voice was nearly steady. The words felt heavier out loud. She pulled at the blanket, her knuckles blanching. He shifted, leaning closer. Close enough she could see the golden thread in his coat's collar, the line of his jaw softening.
Not all monsters are born. Some are made, and some are made to save.
The sentence hung between them, simple and inexplicable. She almost asked what he meant. Instead, she pressed her lips tight, feeling the fire's warmth mingle with fear. The urge to confess, to demand something, anything, pulsed beneath her skin.
You know more than you say. About the curse. About me.
He hesitated, then reached to adjust the blanket over her knee. His fingers brushed her skin, deliberate, no reason but comfort. The touch lingered a fraction too long. She almost pulled away. Instead, she let him. For a moment, the night was small. Nothing but the fire, the dry wool, the steady rasp of river water behind them. A branch snapped close by. Instantly, Thane's hand left hers. His body shifted, tense again. The intimacy fractured, but its echo remained, sharp and bright. Seris stared into the fire, her mind racing. Was he protecting her, or keeping her close for other reasons? How much did he already know about what she would become? The night didn't answer. Only the crackle of flame and the unspoken promise in his last line. Mud sucked at Seris's bare feet as she tore through the pines, wet earth clinging with each frantic step. Branches lashed her arms. Behind her, the night pulsed with savage snarls. Too many, too close. She risked a glance back. Gold eyes glinted between trunks, and the heavy musk of wolf fur and damp earth pressed in from every side. But she didn't know why they were after her now. The pack had found them. A flash of movement ahead. Thane half-shadow, coat ripped, mud streaked down his jaw. Wolves darted in pursuit, pelts dark and bristling, paws churning up leaves and black muck. As she stumbled, Seris caught her balance against slick pine bark, nails digging in.
Stay close.
His voice, low and cold, anchored her in the chaos. Not a command, a warning. A wolf lunged from the thicket, jaws snapping for Seris's throat. Thane surged forward, blocking with his own body. Claws raked his sleeve. He didn't flinch, just shoved the beast aside with raw strength.
You should keep your distance, Majesty.
Her tone was flat, but her pulse, furious, uneven, betrayed her. Mud spattered as another wolf skidded between them, hackles raised, blocked by Thane's boot.
You're amusing if you think I plan to die here.
He moved in front of her again, back to the enemy, jaw set. The wolves circled, growling, but none rushed. They sniffed the air, then, as if repelled, drew back from Seris. Wet earth oozed around her toes, anchoring her. The black veins at her wrist throbbed, burning cold, crawling higher. She pressed a hand to her forearm, gritting her teeth. One wolf bared its teeth. The others hesitated, eyes locked on her curse.
Why are they...
A snarl cut her off. The largest wolf leaped. Thane stepped directly into its path, arms raised, and bore the impact. He landed hard in the mud, splashing a spray of black filth. For a heartbeat, everything froze.
If I live through this, I'm burning these boots.
Seris's lips almost twitched. She crouched beside him, eyes darting. The wolves still circled, but wouldn't come closer. Their noses wrinkled, ears flattened, bodies held low. They watched her, not him, with naked fear. Mud seeped through her cloak, cold and slick. She forced herself up, grabbing Thane's arm.
On your feet. Move.
She hauled him upright, his hand warm and solid, closed over hers a beat longer than needed. He didn't let go at once. Charged silence stretched between them, wild with the pounding of unseen paws and the rustle of branches overhead. Then they ran. The forest closed in, pine needles scraping skin, mud sucking and releasing in ugly, wet gasps. Wolves howled behind, but none dared cross into their path. Sweat mixed with the rank stink of fur and earth. Seris's curse blazed up her veins, black as river silt, each flare making her vision knife-sharp and dizzy all at once.
They're afraid of you.
It was almost a question. Almost.
So am I.
A desperate laugh threatened to break free, but she swallowed it. They stumbled through a ditch, lost their footing, tumbled together into a tangle of roots and muck. He grunted, spitting mud.
Remind me why I let you lead.
Instinct. Or desperation.
He pushed to his knees. She caught the flicker of a question in his eyes, but the wolves halted at the ditch's edge, eyes wide, bodies quivering, wet earth glued to their legs, lungs burning. They stared back at the pack. Not one wolf crossed the threshold. Not one dared. Seris flexed her aching hand. The curse throbbed at her skin, and for a moment, the wolves' terror felt almost familiar, almost merciful. Then the pulsing in her arm intensified, black veins twisting up past her elbow. She gasped, doubling over.
Seris.
She didn't answer. The wolves melted into the night, more frightened of her than of the king at her side. Why did they fear her now? What had her curse made her become? A cold wind sliced through the trees. Wet earth clung to her feet, heavier than chains, and the black veins kept rising. Smoke curled from the healer's rafters, heavy with rosemary and bitter root. The wind outside battered the small hut, cold scraping at the window's edges. A row of dried herbs swayed, casting strange shapes on the uneven walls. Seris stood quiet, her cloak damp and fingers aching from the climb. The curse on her wrist had darkened. Now a black wall twisting toward her palm, Thane's boots scuffed the dirt floor behind her. He watched her in the flicker of torchlight, a question burning in his gaze, but he said nothing. The healer, a woman with crow-black hair and eyes sharp as flint, blocked the only door. She measured them with the blunt appraisal of a merchant, not a saint. "You want knowledge," she said. "Nothing comes free. Not in these days." Seris drew in a breath. Under the veil of herbal smoke, the metallic tang of her own blood still lingered. She'd bitten the inside of her cheek hard on the climb, and the taste remained, iron and warning. Thane reached for his coin pouch, but the healer shook her head. "Money won't cure the plague nor bribe the dead awake." She pointed to the corner. "There, my daughter. She's been dying since the new moon." Seris turned, a child, skeletal, lips blue, sweat standing on her brow. Shadows ringed her eyes, and her breath came quick, too shallow. "What do you ask?" Seris spoke low, deliberate. The healer's fingers curled around a clay bowl. "A cure, or proof you can touch the living and do no harm." Thane stepped forward, voice low. This is not her trial to bear. But Seris cut him off with a look. She knelt by the child, the curse burning under her skin. She unwrapped her wrist, exposing the black mark to the healer's light. "If I fail," Seris said, "the curse spreads. If I succeed, your daughter lives. Is that your bargain?" The healer nodded once. Seris's hand trembled. She pressed her palm to the child's fevered forehead. The cursed mark glimmered, veins of ink threading into the girl's skin. The metallic scent of her blood, sharp, unnatural, mingled with the sweet, choking herbal smoke. For a moment, nothing moved. Pain lanced through Seris's arm. The world flared white and red, her senses narrowing to the pulse beneath her hand. She could feel the curse, straining, fighting to spill beyond its boundaries. Her jaw clenched. She forced it back, locking the darkness inside herself. The child stirred, then blinked. Her lips parted. Colour flooded her cheeks with sudden, impossible warmth. A smile, small, sun-bright, broke across the child's face. Seris drew back, sweat prickling the nape of her neck. The curse on her wrist had not grown. But her arm throbbed, icy and hot at once. For the first time, the healer faltered. She stepped back, voice uneven.
"You risked your own soul, for mine."
The wind rattled the hut. The metallic tang lingered, uneasy. Thane's eyes found Seris's, searching, almost something soft there, before he looked away.
You did not have to do this.
Seris flexed her fingers, each joint stiff.
I do what is required, nothing more.
A small noise, the child's laughter, high and clear, cut through the haze. For one heartbeat, the world was only that sound. But the healer was not finished. She moved to the hearth, rummaging through a basket. Her voice was sharper, businesslike again.
"Payment is met. Now I answer. But what you seek, what you risked, the truth may destroy you."
Thane stepped close, his shoulder brushing Seris's for the barest instant, warmer than the fire, intentional, then gone. The healer produced a folded scrap of parchment, ink smeared by hurried fingers.
"You must follow the path north, beyond the old shrine. But beware, the curse has roots deeper than blood, and not all who heal are spared its hunger."
Seris stared at the parchment, the lines swimming before her eyes. The wind howled, the metallic scent clung to her skin. The laughter had faded. Had she cursed the child, or saved her? And what price would the truth demand? The parchment tore in Seris's grip. Rain hammered the barn roof, each drop a drumbeat above Seris's head. The air reeked of wet hay and old smoke, thick enough to taste. Splintery wood pressed against her palm as she steadied herself, her fingers trembling so hard she almost didn't notice. Thane stood close beside her, torchlight from the alcove striping his jaw in gold. His coat was soaked, fur collar flattened, hair clinging to his cheekbones. The thunder cracked again, closer this time. She flinched. He noticed. He looked at her hand braced on the beam, then at her face.
You're shaking.
She did not answer. She drew her hand back, slow, but the splinters bit, and she hissed. He reached, stopped himself, then pressed his knuckles to his own mouth instead.
You saved that child.
It will not last.
Silence, broken only by the rain. The scent of trampled hay mingled with the bitter tang of the iron ring at his wrist, a smell she'd learned to fear. Her eyes darted to the barn door as it creaked under the wind, wood grinding in protest. The same mournful groan as the court's iron gate the night she returned. He followed her gaze, remembering. She spoke, voice tight as wire.
Do you ever regret it? Any of it?
His answer took too long.
Every decision carves a scar, some deeper than others.
Thunder swallowed his words. She thought of the black mark circling her wrist, how it ached in the dark, pulsing with secrets. Her fingers found the groove in the beam again, pressing until her skin whitened. He watched her do it.
I need to ask you something.
Her heart tripped. She made sure her face betrayed nothing.
Why did you come back?
She almost laughed. Instead, she gave him the only answer that cost her.
I needed to see if you had changed.
He stepped closer, so close his breath warmed her cheek. His hand hovered near hers on the beam. Uncertain, longing and fear tangled in the space between. She stayed very still. He exhaled.
And what did you see?
A man hiding behind a crown.
He didn't flinch, but his jaw tightened. The barn door shuddered again, wind moaning through its seams, echoing memory. Each sound pressed them closer.
You think I don't see you? You think I haven't tried?
He broke off. Rain battered the world outside, trapping them in this small, hay-scented cage. Her hand, still trembling on the beam, brushed his fingers. A single spark set loose in the dark. Neither moved.
What are you afraid of, Thane?
His reply was a whisper, torn from somewhere deep.
That if I let you close, everything I built will fall apart. That I'll become like them, or worse, nothing at all.
She turned, their faces inches apart. She could see every line cut by grief, every regret he wore like armor. Her lips parted. She didn't know what would come out. Lightning exploded, violent and blue, throwing their shadows against the beams. The thunder that followed shattered the moment. He jerked away. The barn door slammed open a finger's width, wind shrieking through the gap. She pressed her palm to the splintery wood, anchoring herself. Her whole arm shook.
Seris.
She cut him off.
Save it. You're still hiding.
He stared, wounded, then covered it with a mask of command. The barn door moaned again, begging entry, the storm demanding what neither of them could give. Rain surged louder. They stood on either side of the beam, shadows split by torchlight, too far to touch and too close to run. The iron ring at Thane's wrist caught the light, and for a heartbeat, Seris wondered what he was still keeping from her. The barn creaked. The storm showed no sign of mercy. And in the space between, thunder, the truth waited, neither spoken nor safe. The dungeon stank of burned pine and wet stone, thick and sour. Torchlight jittered along the walls, glinting off iron bars, slime-cold stone pressed against Ceres's bare feet, stealing any warmth left in her. She had run through the castle's ruined corridors, desperate to reach Meryl's workroom. Too late, the apothecary sprawled across the flagstones, mouth slack, eyes wide in terror. Blood dried at his temple, the satchel of evidence gone. A chill that had nothing to do with stone crept up Ceres's spine. Someone had known exactly what she sought. Footsteps scraped behind her. Lys emerged from the shadows, grey robe dark against the stone, ink stains on his cuffs. His eyes were as sharp as glass.
Strange to find you here, alone.
He did not look at the body, only at Seris, and at the cursed mark on her wrist.
The apothecary is dead, and you, with blood on your shoe.
She glanced down. He was right. The proof had found her, not the other way. Her jaw tightened.
You know I did not kill him.
I know a great many things. For instance, how you came by that letter, or the king's ring you keep hidden.
He stepped closer. The torchlight caught green in his eyes. Seris could smell iron, acrid and bitter, beneath the burned pine. The guards were already coming.
You set this up. Why? You've served Thane for years.
Lys smiled, thin as winter ice.
You think loyalty matters here? The kingdom is rot, the shadow plague spreads, and the king's court pence monsters like pets.
He turned, voice raised.
She murdered Merrill. She stole the proof. I saw her fleeing the room.
The guards seized Seris. Rough iron bit her wrists. She tried to twist free, but there were too many hands.
Thane will know.
The king trusts my word over a wolf's.
He watched as they dragged her away, face smooth, eyes empty. They threw her into a stone cell, damp, torchlit, rank with mildew. The door slammed. Slime-cold stone numbed her feet. Rage burned through her. She tried to pace, but there was nowhere to go. A rat scurried along the edge of the cell, paused, and reached tiny pink paws through the bars. The guard's bread vanished, crumb by crumb, while he snored, oblivious. Seris let out a sound, almost a laugh. Even here the weak could steal from the blind, but laughter faded. Lys's betrayal gnawed at her worse than hunger. She pressed her palm to the stone, mind racing. She had trusted no one, and still it was not enough. Now she was caged, and the true traitor walked free. Torches spat and hissed. Far above a bell tolled. She had lost everything, proof, protection, even Thane's ear. But Seris was not finished. She lowered herself to the stone, cold biting deep. Tomorrow, she decided, she would find a crack in the walls, in the guards, in Lys himself. The rat squeaked, dropping a crust at her feet as if in pity. She smiled and began to plan. Water dripped from the tunnel's arched stone ceiling, striking Seris's cheek as she pressed herself flat against the wall. The moss beneath her fingertips was bitterly cold. Far behind, torchlight flickered madly. Lys's men were gaining. She dragged in the metallic, damp air. The curse twined tighter on her wrist, that familiar black mark swirling under her skin, humming with threat and promise. Her muscles strained against the memory of chains. Not again. She refused. A shout echoed, a voice she recognized, clipped and razor-sharp.
She can't get far. The king wants her alive. Move.
She moved, breath shallow, shoulder brushing the stone. The moss tugged at her palm, slick, slimy, daring her to slip. She would not. Each step was a gamble in the dark, one hand always trailing the wall, judging every bump and ridge by sensation. A skitter of gravel behind, closer now. She forced herself faster, bare feet sliding on damp stone. A left turn. Her hip slammed into an iron bracket jutting from the wall. She stifled a cry. The mark on her wrist flared, ink pooling, seeping ice up her arm. Not now, she muttered. The tunnels twisted again, everything slick, blind, and stinking of old water and things better left hidden. Suddenly, a loud clatter. She almost ran straight into Thane. Tall, broad, shrouded in the half-light, the gold fur collar of his coat, incongruous among the slime and moss. His amber eyes, haunted, burning, locked on hers.
Keep moving. Don't look back.
He stepped aside, just enough to let her pass, his arm brushing hers. Heat through the tattered wool. She drew in a gasp that wasn't quite fear.
Why are you...
He cut her off, voice a whisper.
I'll hold them. Go, Seris.
She hesitated. Moss squelched under her palm, cold and wet. If she trusted him now, she'd owe him. Everything in her rebelled at the thought. But Lys's footsteps were nearly on them. She slipped past, the scent of crushed sage, his from the court chambers, clinging to her cloak for a single heartbeat. That, and something rawer. Guilt, maybe. Her foot skidded on a patch of moss. She caught herself, palm throbbing. Somewhere ahead, A faint draft promised freedom. A yell, a scuffle. Thane's voice thundered against stone.
You're interfering with my command, Liz.
You're harboring her. That's treason, even for you.
Seris darted onward. The tunnel narrowed, dripping water on her shoulders. Her cursed wrist burned. She focused, letting the darkness thicken around her. The mark crawled up her arm, seething, but it made her invisible at the edges, senses sharpening. She slipped into a side alcove, pressing back as Lys and his men thundered past, boots grinding grit. She waited, the distant clang of iron gates, the bark of orders. A heavy pause. Relief threatened to loosen her knees. Instead, her stomach growled, betraying her in the quiet. She pressed a fist to her ribs. Of all the nights to have missed supper, a rotten apple skidded across the passage, bouncing at Lys's feet.
Try that on your logic, Liz.
A stunned silence. Someone snorted, then a boot squelched in slime. Seris bit her tongue not to laugh. She pushed herself off the wall and ran, following the current of damp air. The moss under her fingertips never let her forget how close she was to losing her grip, to sliding back into chains. Behind, Thane's voice faded. The chase was not over, but she had a lead, a narrow, stinking thread of hope. The moss turned to dry stone. A shaft of distant torchlight flickered ahead, an exit or another trap. She did not pause, not for Thane, not for Lys, not even for the growing ache in her wrist. She plunged forward, straight into blinding light and the unknown. Sunlight streamed through the broken chapel windows, slicing the ruined nave into blades of gold and blue. The air stank of burned pine and wet stone. Glass shards crunch under Seris's thin shoes as she steps forward, the black mark on her wrist aching with every movement. She stops at the altar, breath ragged. The blue and crimson of shattered saints paint her hands. Thane stands in the ruined choir, coat dusted with ash, broad shoulders, rigid.
You ran from the truth long enough.
Her voice is a blade. Thane's jaw tightens. He turns, amber eyes dulled, fingers clenched around the iron ring on his left hand. The ring that always seemed too heavy, too cold.
You shouldn't be here.
His words land like an order, but a crack shows through, desperation that makes her want to flinch. She stares at his hand. The iron gleams in the sunlight, casting a warped shadow beside the black swirl on her wrist.
Why do you wear that?
She lifts her arm, letting the fractured rainbow of glass splash across both of them. Mark and ring joined in the same prism. Thane's face twists, but he doesn't answer. Wind rattles the chapel's rafters.
The mark doesn't bind me alone. It shackles you too, doesn't it?
He looks down. His mouth works, but no sound comes. For a second, she sees something raw break through the diplomat's mask. Not the king, not the wolf, just a boy who'd made an impossible choice.
You don't understand what you're asking.
His voice lowers, almost a promise, almost a threat. She steps closer, ignoring the pain biting up her arm, the way her blood seems to crawl. The colors on the floor shift as dawn creeps higher.
Then explain it, or I'll drag the truth out of your court, stone by stone. Why exile me? Why curse me with the mark they all fear?
The accusation hangs brittle as glass between them. Thane's shoulders slump. He stares at the ring, twisting it, knuckles white.
Because you were chosen. Not as a sacrifice, as an anchor.
She flinches. Her heart lurches.
Anger for what?
Outside, the bells call again. Inside, he's silent so long she almost spits a curse.
The prophecy called for the Alphas chosen to die. The mark on your wrist. It's not a sentence. It's what keeps the kingdom at peace. As long as you lived, the curse wouldn't claim us all.
His hand shakes. The ring. Its swirling lines match the black mark curling up her skin. Mirror twins, split by iron.
You let them hunt me for years. You let me believe I was nothing.
His jaw clenches.
I lied. I told them you were a threat. It was the only way to keep the council from discovering the truth. If they'd known, they'd have done worse than exile you. I had to make them believe I hated you.
The gold light flickers over his face, stark and unkind. Her throat burns. With all the words she swallowed over the years, she presses her palm to his, mark to ring, letting the fractured rainbow light blaze between their joined hands. His skin is colder than the stone.
You could have told me.
He closes his eyes, every line in his body drawn thin as wire.
If I had, you'd have tried to break the prophecy. You'd have fought. You always do.
She almost laughs, bitter and wild.
And now, you want me to forgive you? To die quietly while your kingdom survives?
He opens his mouth, then closes it. The silence roars. The colours shift across their hands. Blue, red, gold. All the chapel's broken saints bleeding together. He lets go. The iron ring leaves a cold impression on her skin.
No, I want you to choose to fight as yourself, not as the court's weapon. But the price?
He stops. His breathing is unsteady, voice stripped bare.
If the curse is to be undone, the anchor must break, and you know what that means.
She thinks of the mark, of the pain, of the years, of everything she's lost, and everything she might still lose. She steps back, light glancing off glass shards to paint the ruined altar in violent colour. Outside, the court bells sound again, the same hollow toll as the festival's beginning, echoing up through the stone. Seris looks at the mark on her wrist, then at the iron ring. Her next words die in her throat as the question rises, clear and brutal. What would she be if she let the anchor break? She doesn't answer. The rainbow between their hands flickers. The bells keep tolling. Dawn fog pressed against the castle courtyard, muting the edges of every stone. Seris stepped out from the archway, dew soaking instantly through her thin shoes. The cold crept up, sharp and real, almost comforting. She flexed her toes, focusing on the ache, refusing to drift. No one watched her now. The square where she'd first returned was empty, except for Thane at the gates. His coat caught the last grey of night, gold thread dulled by mist. The distant bells began to count the hour. Every clang found a nerve she thought she'd buried. The breeze shifted. It carried a faint scent of new bread and crushed wildflowers. Peaceful, almost out of place here. For a breath, the memory of childhood mornings flickered. Laughter, hands clasping hers, the taste of honey on bread. Then it vanished. She was alone again, with only the black mark coiling tight on her wrist. Thane stepped forward, boots silent on wet stone. His face was drawn, eyes fixed, not on her, but on the space between them.
Seris, don't. There's still time to find another way.
She studied him. Rain from the last night clung to his hair, making him look younger, uncertain. The ring on his finger, the twin to her mark, caught the dim light.
Every bargain for peace has a cost. This one's mine to pay.
He drew closer, his hand half raised, as though to catch her if she fell. The bells faded into the fog. Seris willed herself not to tremble, the dew soaking her feet, reminding her she was still flesh and blood, still someone.
You don't have to give them everything.
If I keep my name, myself, the curse will never break. The plague will rot out every corner, every child. There is no half measure left.
Her voice was flat, but her fingers ached to hold something steady. She thought of her old room, shuttered, stripped of every belonging. She thought of the child's hand she'd held during the ritual, how small and fiercely alive it was. That, too, would fade if she chose safety. The cool dew crawled up her soles, anchoring her to the moment. A thin, desperate smile flickered on Thane's mouth. He dropped to one knee before her, hands raised in surrender. So unlike the first day when she'd stood here under suspicion, stripped of dignity.
Stay, Seris, please. I'll kneel or I'll beg. You can have the court, the gates, everything. Just don't leave me with a kingdom I can't recognize.
He pressed her hand in both of his. The iron ring burned against her skin. When she tried to speak, her tongue tangled around her name, already slipping. Her throat tasted of iron and something darker, like bitter root and ashes and the memory of wildflowers after rain.
I never came back for the crown.
Her words struck the mist, final as a blade. Still, she hesitated, staring at the hand that had shaped so many decisions, his and hers. She took a breath, the scent of spiced wine and new bread ghosting past. She pressed his hand firmly to her marked wrist. The black veins writhed, then stilled. The magic burrowed inward, a burning spiral through muscle and bone. Pain crashed over her, fierce and bright. She forced herself to stay upright, refusing to let her knees buckle. The ring slipped from Thane's hand. It clattered to the stone, exactly as in her first moments here. But now, she was the one who chose what to lose. Her mind dimmed at the edges. She felt memories unravel. Her laughter, her anger, her sister's voice, Thane's scent, the sound of wolves in the wood. She held tight to Thane's gaze, even as faces blurred. He whispered something, a plea or a promise, lost to the roar in her ears. His hands shook. For a moment, the fog parted. Sunlight scattered through broken chapel windows far above, catching in Thane's tear-lined eyes. Warmth fluttered in her chest, fragile, a flicker of wonder that she still held the power to choose, even now. Then, it was gone. She let go. The curse's mark faded from her wrist, leaving only pale skin and the faintest scent of wildflowers, the aftertaste of everything she'd surrendered. The dew clung to her feet, cold as the memory she could no longer name. Thane gathered the ring from the stones. His hands trembled, not as a king, but as someone who had lost something the world would never see. The bells tolled once more. Far off, the court gates groaned as they shut. Seris stood at the threshold, no longer a prisoner, no longer a queen, no longer even herself. And behind her, Thane's voice broke the fog, but she walked on, carrying peace at a price the dawn would never forget. Midday gold spilled through the castle's high windows, painting the stones in shifting warmth. The light caught dust motes swirling above Seris's upturned face as she walked, unhurried, through the echoing hall. Her feet made no sound on the cold flagstones. Her shadow moved easily at her side, no longer trailing in unnatural shapes, no longer hunched or clawed. The scent of new bread drifted from the kitchens, threaded with wildflowers growing in cracks of ancient walls. Seris drew a slow breath, eyes narrowing as the familiar world felt unfamiliar and safe for the first time. She paused beneath a sunbeam, letting heat touch her cheeks. The memory of iron at her throat flickered. Gone. She was herself, as she was now. Not a princess, not a monster, only Seris. A hush settled as she neared the court's heart, courtiers in gold and slate gathering in nervous clusters. They watched her, but not as before. No one barred her path. A brass bell rang above, the melody unchanged from the festival where she had once been paraded in chains. This time, the notes seemed to beckon, not bind. Thane waited at the center of the hall, hands folded behind his back. Amber eyes, unreadable. He stepped forward, sunlight catching the iron ring on his hand, the twin to the mark she bore, and would carry still. For an instant, the whole court seemed to hold its breath. He stopped before her, close enough she could see the tension in his jaw, the weariness around his eyes.
Seris.
He didn't reach for her, not at first. The rules between them had always been jagged, drawn in caution and old pain.
You are free now. Whatever you choose.
Seris' voice was steady.
I know.
She didn't wait for his permission. Instead, she extended her hand, palm tilted to the light, and for a heartbeat, her shadow lay even with his. The court watched in silence. Someone dropped to one knee. Another followed. The hush broke in a ripple of bowing heads. Thane's palm met hers, warm and solid. For the first time, Seris did not flinch. The hall was suddenly full of sound, bells, laughter, footsteps vanishing into sunlight. A breeze carried richer scents, wildflowers, yeast, the salt of her own skin. The sun lingered on her upturned face.
Stay.
She considered, then nodded once, not a promise, a choice. They stood, shoulder to shoulder, shadows stretching together across ancient stone. The spell was broken only by her gaze slipping to the far window, where Lys's narrow face watched from the corridor's edge, calculating, always distant. He held her eyes a moment, green catching gold, then faded into the brightness beyond. Seris turned back, her hand still in Thane's, the hall no longer a prison, but a place remade by her own survival. In the sunlight, for the first time, she smiled. Sometimes a shadow walks free and never returns to what made it. Seris made her peace in the midday gold. But I wonder if you would have taken Thane's hand or turned away after all that was lost. Would you have forgiven him? If this story changed you, leave a mark. A like lets stories like this find others who need them. Until next time, wherever you are, walk toward your own light.